Hi, my name is Peter with Clear Grow Farms, and in this episode I'm going to show you how to commission your brand new UpFarm, how to fill it with water, how to get the pump going, how to balance the flow, how to add nutrients, how to plant your first crop. And over the course of the next few months we're going to launch some other videos showing you how to harvest, how to plant each section as you go, and show you the wonderful benefits of owning an UpFarm as a continuous harvest hydroponic system. In the meantime, please like this video, please subscribe to our channel, and click the bell icon so you get notified on future videos. As with anything, preparation is key, so make sure you have all of your components ready to go. Before you start, make sure if you assembled your UpFarm that all of your fittings and connections are securely fastened in behind. You have your power bar set at the up at the top of the UpFarm. You have your jug ready to go, your funnel, all your nutrients, and that's step one. After that, we're going to move into adding water, and you're going to add 25 liters of water to begin. You're going to use your 5-liter jug and you're going to fill it here. Make sure your UpFarm is sitting in its final position. Make sure you have a good source of water. You don't want to use soft water. Soft water is not a good thing generally for a hydroponic system. You can just use regular tap water. No need to worry about the chlorine or anything. Have your UpFarm plugged in to power. Turn your lights on just so you can see what's going on. Okay, so we've added our first 25 liters of water. This is the reservoir section down below. You're going to see there's a water level stick that comes with the system. You're going to be at 25 liters. Your nutrients are down below ready to go, and the pump is in the water. So at this stage we're going to plug the pump in, or we're going to turn the pump on, plug it into the electrical outlet, and we're going to just run it for a couple of minutes just to make sure that there are no leaks. So after you've filled your 25 liters of water at the beginning, before you, or as you turn your pump on, what you're looking for is you want to just double check these connections in the back. These fittings, these are push fittings. There's a sleeve, you push up and you pull up on the sleeve and you pull down on the pipe with 2 hands, and you can remove them. So when you put this all together in the assembly process, you want to make sure that all those fittings slide really close or snugly in place, and that will prevent any leaking. So when you first start your pump with the 25 liters, you test it, and you want to just make sure there are no drips there. If there are drips there, just pull the connections apart, put them back together, and test it again. It is important not to run your pump longer than sort of 15 to 20 seconds because there's only 25 liters in the reservoir at the beginning and you don't want to run it dry. The other thing you want to just double check for when you set things up are your fans. Your fans slide into the connections up here. They should fit snugly, and then they should hang supported just from the top and sort of angled at a 45-degree angle down. Run your cords nice and neatly and run them up to the top where your power bar is. Level now. In most cases, if you buy a 2-level or a single level, you will still always initiate the entire setup with just a single level because you have to stagger your planting. You have 4 sections of planting. You have a half tray, and a third and a fourth. So what you want to do is stagger your planting by roughly 7 to 10 days so that you continuously have something to harvest. But in this instance, I'm going to show you how to get 2 levels going right away. If you were to just do a single level, you would simply shut the valve off here. So I have the 3rd level shut off. I would shut this valve off as well and only worry about getting water into the bottom level. But in this case, I'm going to show you, just for the sake of showing how to balance the flow, we're going to open this valve completely. We're going to slightly restrict the bottom valve, and then we're going to plug our pump in. And as our pump begins flowing, you'll see you want to get a good flow coming out of this. It should take about 2 minutes roughly to fill a tray. You want to make sure that everything's flowing nicely in the system. You balance it by adjusting these valves. If you want a little bit more water coming in the bottom, you get a little more water coming in the bottom. You want more at the top, you just open this all the way. And you can sort of restrict the bottom, and I'm going to just unplug this. We've determined that there's no leaks. In this instance, if you're starting a new farm, you want to maybe just keep this slightly away from the wall. Double check that all the fittings in the back aren't dripping. But in my case, I've already done all that. So it's easier to roll this thing around when there's only 25 liters. If you fill this all the way up with 50 liters and get it all fully loaded, it's going to be much harder for you to move it. So at this point in time, we suggest you start with just 25 liters, test it all, get the pump going. Now we're going to add the other 25. Alright, so now we have our 50 liters of water in. We still haven't turned our pump on. We are going to push this fill pipe back into position, and basically what you want to do is just lift it up to drain any water out that might have been inside that pipe, and then you slide it back in. At this point, I don't have the door on, so I could potentially close the door. But we want to, now that we have the water in, we want to turn the pump on. So we're going to plug the pump in. And we're going to let the pump run until the trays fill up. And basically at that point then we can take our tray covers that we have here. We want to put them in place. And one of the things we can do here is we can at this point get ready to plant. This is the drain cover that goes over top of here. So if you're ever removing the tray cover on the right side, you want to make sure that this does not fall down into the water there. You want to pull this out first. This is also an easy access point for actually adding any other nutrients, balancing any pH. It gives you the ability to peek your head in there, look down every once in a while, make sure that there are no roots clogging the drain pipe or anything like that. You can use your tweezers as an example to reach in there, pull roots out if they're blocking. There's no problem with ripping some roots off. You don't really want the roots to go dangling down into the drain. It typically doesn't become a problem unless you're growing crops that are longer term. Let's say we started growing herbs. You always grow herbs on the left side. And at that point, the herbs over the course of 4 or 5 months, if you have them in here, the roots would potentially reach over there. So you want to make sure you check those on a regular basis every couple of weeks. Okay, so now we have the system running. It's time to add our nutrients. We have 4-part nutrient plus a pH down. You always add part 1 first. It has to mix thoroughly. With your system, you get a little measuring cup, which is for the every weekly addition. It's easy to measure out the 5 and 10 milliliters you need. You can also pick up a larger cylinder like this that measures out 50 and 100 milliliters for the initial dosing, or just add 5 of those as an example. But in this case, I'm measuring out 50 milliliters of the micro, which is what we need to get the system going. Shake your nutrients up a bit, and you want to add 50 milliliters, and then let this mix thoroughly for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. What I like to do for adding the nutrients is to pour it into the drain pipe, because that's faster and you can get the nutrients mixing quicker. The other thing you can do is take the top off and just pour it in, because you're measuring so much at the beginning. Basically, we just want to pour it into the drain pipe. I'm doing this on the second level just because it's easier and more convenient for me. If you're starting with the first tier, you would leave the tops off of your tray covers, leave the tray covers off, and then put it in the bottom. And so we're going to let that circulate for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. Let our part 1 mix for about 5 minutes. And I'm gonna twist the top off because we need to add 100 milliliters of this. It would take quite a while to squirt it out that way. So I just fill this up to the 100 milliliter mark. And if you have a measuring device from your kitchen or something to measure out 100 milliliters, it might be helpful. to do something larger volume like this. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to pour this in to the drain. And we're going to wait another 5 minutes and let that drain, or let that mix thoroughly. Good idea to rinse out your cylinder, your measuring device after you're finished using it. And we're going to let that run for 5 minutes. And so now we're going to add part 3. Give her a quick shake. The second part isn't as critical to shake. Part 3 and part 4 you should shake if you can. We're going to add 50 milliliters of this. Rinse out your container, pour it back in. We're going to let that mix through for 5 minutes, and we'll add the fourth and final part. Okay, so now we're going to add our fourth and final part. This is the calcium magnesium. We need 100 milliliters. So this is basically your part 1 is 50, part 2 is 100, part 3 is 50, part 4 is 100, and then we'll balance the pH after we add this and let it circulate through. We're going to let this run through for about 5 minutes. While we're waiting for that to go, I'll show you some tips on what I like. So basically, we can take this tray cover, and I'm doing this up here just because it's easier to show on the second level. In the UpFarm 1 single level, which you would normally start, you would be doing this here, but I'm doing it up here. So what we do is I put this tray cover in place, and then I can easily take my pH pen to measure my pH, and I can just set it in here. Okay, then I can let it wait till the water circulates through, and I can see the pH. This prevents it from falling over, so you don't want this thing to fall in because it'll ruin it. We'll put the link down below in Amazon where you can get this. That measures your pH, so we want to balance the pH between 5.8 and 6.2, and this is your parts per million reader, so you want to get your parts per million between 800 and 1200 parts per million. And once again, we're going to put this in here. We're going to wait for it to circulate through and balance the pH first, and then take our final reading. So you want, okay, so while we're waiting, before we add our pH, balance our pH, just a few things. So remember, we have our EC meter, which we'll put the link down below for where to buy that on Amazon. The pH pen, I also like to have a little humidity thermometer thing. You can buy that on Amazon as well. It's $10. One of your most important critical cleaning tools that you can have in your toolkit here is hydrogen peroxide, food grade hydrogen peroxide. You can use it to clean most anything in your system. On your big cleanings, you want to run some hydrogen peroxide water through the lines and everything. So at this point, we're going to add our pH down. And our pH down is extremely concentrated, very corrosive. Please protect your eyes, wear head protection. I'm using gloves, as you can see. At this stage of the game, cleanliness is really critical, so you want to kind of wear gloves whenever you can. And in this instance, it calls for a total of about 10 milliliters of pH down. However, when you first load your system, the little trick is that pH is going to fluctuate quite a bit in the first week. So I'm only going to add 5 milliliters of pH down initially. We're going to dose that in, and we're going to just wait to see how the pH adjusts. And then we'll come back and add more if we have to. Generally speaking, you want to be err on the side of caution and be lower in your dosage. So right now, we stick our pH meter in there. We're about 5.95, so we wanted the target 5.8 to 6.2. You know, these $12, $15 pH pens typically aren't the most accurate. We'll show you in later videos, sort of, if you really want to take this to the next level, what you should be using. But so we're roughly around 6, so that's good. So we only added half the amount of the pH down, but we're at 6. So I'm not going to add any more. What I'm going to do is over the course of the next week, because during the first week you're going to have the most variability in pH in your whole entire system. So we're going to measure that every couple of days and just make sure that the pH isn't rising, because it's going to have a tendency to rise for the next 3 to 5, 6 days. So we want to keep an eye on that. We're going to test our EC, which is our parts per million of our nutrients, just to make sure that we're within the target range. Our target was between 800 and 1200, and we're at 903, so that's great. So at this point, we're good. We're not going to add any more pH down. We're not going to do any of that. I'm going to just cover it. So this is the left tray cover. I already have the right one on. We're going to cover it. I'm not going to plant this top section, and I'm going to show you if as an example, you're starting and you're going to initiate something and you don't want to plant anything, you can't have light shining through these holes. So you're given these blackout covers. You need to go through and put the blackout covers onto each of the holes where there won't be anything planted. So in most instances, you will not initiate your second tier. You're only going to start with a single tier, and you're only going to start on half of a single tier. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to just quickly show you some other things that you're going to need to keep in mind. As I had mentioned before, hydrogen peroxide, you want to keep that handy all the time to clean. And with your system, you're going to get these cube holders, okay? And these cube holders hold what are called the rock wool, okay? This is just volcanic rock heated up and spun. It holds an enormous amount of water for its weight. It's very lightweight. You simply put the two together, put them together like that, okay? This is your cube holder, this is your cube. This purpose of this rock wool is simply to give the seed somewhere to germinate and send roots. The roots will ultimately come through here and into the water. So this is just the placeholder, okay? You can put this in your garden after when you're composting. We'll show you all the things on harvesting and how to recycle everything in here, but initially this is what you're doing. So the next step is I'm going to show you how to put all these together and how to get them ready for planting. So we've basically added the water, added the nutrients, pump's running, everything's good. We've checked our pH, we've checked our parts per million, and now we're ready to plant. So what we want to do to make this simple, just grab a bowl from your kitchen, fill it with some water. What we have is, of course, the holders that hold the rock wool, as I had mentioned, and you want to put the two together. You just slide them in like that, and you want to put it upside down in here, okay? Now, we're going to just do that. There's 9 holes on the right, 10 on the left, and if you're doing a single tier UpFarm, you will rotate the planting by about 2 weeks, okay? And you'll be able to pull between 800 grams and a kilo of produce out every harvest off of each section here, okay? If you're doing a UpFarm 2, you have 4 planting sections, so you're going to stagger your crops roughly by about 7 to 10 days. It depends on what you're growing, and you'll get to know all of the plants and how fast they grow. But initially, this is what we're doing. We're going to just plant, we're going to just put all these together. We want to soak them upside down so the part that's holding the seed gets really, really wet. Okay? We want to make sure that the seed has moisture when we put the seed in it. Okay? So we put those upside down like that, let them soak up some water for a couple of minutes, then we take them, flip them over, and we drop them in, okay? Very simple, fast. Always good idea to also, just make sure actually as you're putting them in, so if they're a little bit loose, make sure you shove it all the way in so that the rock wool is at the top of the holder and it's not sort of sagging down. You don't want that to happen. And the rock wool will become heavy because it's going to be weighted down by the weight of the water, because the rock wool hardly weighs anything. So we put that in, and so now it's really a good idea to always keep a clean cloth around. I like to just sort of wipe down the top now, get all the moisture off, okay? And basically at this point, we're ready to plant the seeds. Now, if you have the left side and you're not planting it, it is important, as I mentioned before, you put the blackout caps that came with your system on here, okay? You want to put the blackout caps on here until you're ready to plant, because you don't want light shining through these holes into the tray, because what will end up happening is you're going to get algae growing, and you don't want algae. Algae is not a good thing. Algae will consume all the nutrients and make your system not nice. So we don't have a problem with algae because everything is blocked out from covers and lights and everything. So we just want to make sure that we're covering everything thoroughly with these caps, all the lights blocked out, okay? So now this left side you would plant a week later, or if you're just doing an UpFarm one, 2 weeks later, okay? So that part's ready, cover the drain, and now we're ready to plant. Next step is planting. So here we go. We're going to plant some seeds. We're going to plant 2 varieties. The seed packets all have groupings on them, group 1, group 2. We're going to plant a Buttercrunch and a Verdes variety, which is an oak leaf lettuce. You'll get to know the seeds over time in terms of which ones grow well together, which ones grow faster, which ones you like for taste. Simple, we want to make sure we store these seeds in a Ziploc bag with a moisture absorbing little sachet that came with your seeds, out of light in a cool, dark place. That would be the best to preserve your seeds the longest, okay? Don't keep them in your UpFarm on the bottom there. It's just too humid and it's too warm, okay? So what we do is we just simply tap the little packet until the seeds come out. You'll just watch them, and you're going to plant, you know, look, it's a great idea to try and put, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 seeds in a hole, just because you can pull the weak ones out later on. It's better to just plant more up front, okay? Much better to plant more up front. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to cover these up to make sure that the moisture stays in there. And then what we're going to do, now that we have them planted, we just simply cover with these clear cups. And this keeps the moisture on, so you're going to keep these cups in place for the first 5 to 8 days. You're going to watch as they germinate, and then you're going to be pulling them off. What I like to do is use a washable, so not a dry erase because that will stain the surface, a wet erase marker, and I'll write on the side here what I just planted, and then I can also put on the date that I planted it. And then my harvest date is a month later, so I can say that my harvest date is on the front. I know what it is. I don't have to go searching. It's very simple and easy. So basically, you know your planting date, you come back in about 5 days or so, we'll come back, we'll look at this, we'll pull the weak ones, and then we'll let them continue to grow to full-size plants. And so in the meantime, you know, when we get going later on, then essentially this becomes what you have, right? So you have a section in this case here, which is currently growing already, and it's probably about a week away from harvest. And then this is a newer crop here that's still covered. And then if we go down here, we have another group of plants which are sort of 10 days old here. It's a red romaine. And then these ones are new ones which are just coming up. And you know, you can see that basically the babies are coming underneath here. As they get mature and larger, you want to pull the tops off, right? And you know, so this is kind of what you have to look forward to. And then later on, as you get going, you'll see that there's also this is another type of romaine. And then over here we're going to be soon launching some microgreens, so you'll be able to take the same UpFarm and swap out the trays, and we'll give you some microgreen inserts, and then basically you can grow microgreens in the same unit as you're growing. You know, in this case we have kale, we have Swiss chard. Later on, just to tease you, we have propagation trays which can grow up to 100 items in one level, and that could be great for your spring garden where you want to germinate things. You can germinate things for your spring garden. So lots of wonderful potential with your UpFarm. So stay tuned, and as this UpFarm evolves, we're going to keep you posted and update videos.